Welcome back to the Warehouse Podcast. My name is Jesse, and I'm going to be talking about the MLB spring breakout game that the Orioles played against the Pirates. The spring breakout games are a new thing that the MLB introduced this year. So far, it seems like it's pretty exciting. It's basically a prospect showcase where basically teams compete, sort of resembling a spring training game, where they basically showcase their best or some of their best prospects in it. The game is a 7 inning game. Unfortunately, most of the games of the spring breakout games have been 7 innings. The only exception to that is that in the event that both managers agree to play 9 innings, then they'll play 9 innings. But other than that, they are 7 inning games. And this one went seven. And the Pirates did not hit in the bottom half of the seventh because, as I'll get to, they were winning the game. So the Orioles and Pirates game was really highly anticipated due to the great talent in each farm system. The game featured Paul Skeens, Jackson Holliday, Tamar Johnson, Kobe Mayo, Samuel Basayo, Enrique Bradfield, among others. And it was interesting because playing the Pirates and especially seeing Tamar Johnson on the other side, it was a reminder of the 2022 draft when the Orioles selected Jackson Holliday over Tamar Johnson. Now, I don't think any Oriole fans are upset about that. And there might be Pirates fans that are disappointed. The Orioles seemed, at least at this point, to have made the right call. Of course, they're both very young. Things can change in the long term. But I think if you're an Oriole fan looking at it at this point in time, you have to feel like the Orioles made a good decision in selecting Jackson Holliday. Um, but Tamar Johnson is a bit younger than Holliday is, and he's still doing pretty well in the Pirate system. So, yeah, but just seeing the two playing against each other on the same field was sort of a reminder of this 2022 draft when the Orioles had to make that call and ended up going with Holiday instead. So, yeah, so I'll sort of just be breaking down the game in this episode, just talking about a little bit about what happened. I'm not going to go through every single player and what every single player did, but I'll sort of focus on the big names, at least on the Orioles side, because that's what's most important to me and to Oriole fans. The one thing I do want to note, so the Pirates did end up winning this game. They won 3-1. That's why there was no bottom half of the seventh, because the Pirates were the quote unquote home team in this game. Because of that, the Pirates did win. I do want to, clarify that the spring breakout games don't get factored into the standings for the Grapefruit League. So our 16-5 record that the Orioles have now, granted, this is after they lost to the Rays, which was after this game happened. But the 16-5 record the Orioles had, was not negatively impacted by this loss. So their record remained unscathed. Well, not unscathed because I believe at this point we were 16-4. I guess yeah, we didn't have zero losses at the time. But the Orioles record was not diminished because of this loss in this game. And I don't know who is tracking the Grapefruit League standings. I know, of course, I think Oriole fans are aware the Orioles are winning the Grapefruit League at this point. They're in first place. And I don't really care what people say about, it's not that important a league or it's just spring training. These games don't really matter. But for me, as an Oriole fan, I would like to win the Grapefruit League. It wouldn't be like winning the World Series, I would definitely prefer to win the World Series, but I would like to, given the choice of winning the Grapefruit League or not coming in first place in the Grapefruit League, given that choice, I would rather win the Grapefruit League. So we will see what happens. The Orioles do remain in first place, and this game did not affect their record in terms of those standings. So good from that perspective. So getting into the game, it sort of started out. Holiday wasn't the first hitter, but the first sort of big matchup that everybody had been waiting for was Paul Skeens versus Jackson Holiday. And unfortunately, that did not go Holiday's way. Um, Holiday took an unfortunate strikeout. He struck out swinging, probably chasing a pitch outside of the zone. And in the at bat overall, he struck out on a 3-2 pitch. But it seemed like in the at bat there were like 5 strikes, even though 3 only ended up getting called. The first 2 pitches looked very good. And Paul Skeens, not surprisingly, being one of the best prospects in baseball, was just dominant in his 1 inning that he pitched. He came out throwing over 100 miles an hour. He looked really good, and Jackson Holiday, no real problems, but he didn't get the better of Skeens, unfortunately. It would have been nice if, just from a very semantic sort of perspective, because they will meet each other, I'm sure, in the future. This is not the last. This is not the last occurrence where they see each other and where they are battling on the mound and in the batter's box against each other. But because there was a decent amount of emphasis on this moment, on this game, and on this at bat in particular, it would have been nice if Holiday did better, but he did end up striking out swinging, and he looked pretty dominated in the at bat overall, I would say. So that was kind of unfortunate. There is, of course, way more to the game than this one at bat. But in that one at bat, Holiday did take an unfortunate strikeout. I'll mention his second at bat coming up uh, when I talk about Enrique Bradfield here, because the two are connected. So Enrique Bradfield in the game, he went 1 for 3. His one hit was a bunt single, and it was a fantastic bunt. It was perfect. Well, okay. The bunt was very, very good. Okay, maybe for a bunt, some people could have rolled the ball down the line and it would have been a better quote unquote bunt than the bunt he had. But he had a very, very good bunt. It was certainly good enough with his speed to run out an infield single, or a bunt single is a better way to put it. So he did get on base one time. It was a great bunt, and especially in this sort of prospect game, um, you at least like and hope to see that a lot of these players are demonstrating and exhibiting their skills. And Enrique Bradfield absolutely did that. Putting that bunt single down was really impressive, and watching him just get down the line was incredible. So he did that was really impressive. And it sort of course, I don't want to reduce his talent to bunting and speed and stuff like that, but these are two components of his game that are important. And so it was nice to see him to see him do that. Unfortunately, after his bunt single, when he was on the base pass, he did sort of have a base running error. Jackson Holiday was up and he smashed a line drive to third. And sort of instead of freezing, with most line drives on the infield, you're supposed to freeze. He started towards second and he eventually got doubled up. Now maybe a little slack because it when the ball was caught, it was caught over the third baseman's head, and it seems like he probably just got a bad read on it and thought it was headed toward the outfield. But in a situation like that, you really need to make sure that the ball does get out of the infield. And he got doubled up in that situation. So that was unfortunate to see. The other thing that slightly deters from some sort of slack or understanding towards him is that this was going to left field, so it is more difficult to go first to third. Now, maybe with Bradfield's speed, maybe he can do that. But um, at a bare minimum, in that situation, like in all situations, you really need to make sure that the line drive is getting out of the infield, and he didn't do that. So it was just a base running mistake. So that was unfortunate, and it was unfortunate also that Holiday didn't get a hit from that because he really did hit the ball hard. But overall, those were, and they were both in at the front of the lineup. So that's why Holiday was hitting after Bradfield. So that was basically wrap them up. Neither of them they don't play the whole game. So they got removed. So Holiday ended just 0 for 2 with the strikeout to Skeens and that line drive, and Bradfield went 1 for 3 with that bunt single. So not too well, moving on to Norby and Mayo, both of them sort of had unexciting games as well. They both went 0 for 2 with a strikeout. The one run the Orioles did score came on a Samuel Basayo walk. Immediately after he walked, Luis Valdez went into pinch run for Basayo, and then in Valdez fashion, stole both second and third base. And when he was on third, Judd Fabian drove him in with a warning track sac fly to right field. So that was the one run the Orioles scored. If I didn't say, the Orioles lost the game 3-1, that was the final score. So that was kind of yeah. So that's how the Orioles slash Luis Valdez sort of manufactured that run. Of course, Basayo walking had a big part to do with that. But Valdez stealing second and third, can't understate the impact that has on that run crossing the plate. It's a big part of it. So the other really notable thing, sort of going to the pitching side, we had Cade Povich start the game for the Orioles. Um, Obviously, he's an important player for the Orioles farm system. Looking forward to, I talked about him a few episodes ago. He's made, I think we've at least been saying his name more and more recently, because for a while he was potentially making the Orioles on opening day. So as far as Cade Povich, he had pitched 3 innings for the Orioles, and he had a really rough start. In the first inning, he loaded the bases with no outs. He was fortunate to sort of minimize the damage. He ended up pitching 3 innings, giving up 2 runs. One of them was earned. And his third inning was his strongest. He got the Pirates to go 3 up, 3 down. He had 2 strikeouts. So overall, he finished strong. Um, not not that concerning overall. He had sort of a higher pitch count for 3 innings, but in one start, this is okay. Not a big thing to worry about. But yeah, he looked he looked shaky at the beginning, but then sort of worked his way out of some things. So not too terrible overall. So yeah, he battled. I mean, at a bare minimum, you can say he battled. He was in a bad situation in the first inning after he had conceded a run on a sac fly after he had loaded the bases. There were second and third and one out after a stolen base. The guy on first stole second. And then he got out of the inning. So, sort of mixed results for him, but it definitely wasn't clean and definitely wasn't smooth the whole time, but not the worst performance for Povich by any stretch. So, um, yeah, so those are basically the big highlights of the game. Obviously, again, it was a short game. I'm not going to dwell on a lot, but those were sort of the big highlights out of the game. It was uh definitely like a fun game to watch. I'm excited for this sort of event going on in the future. Arguably, spring training is always the time when you see prospects, when you see minor league players come and potentially like future stars of the game a lot of the time, when they end up coming to spring training games where they're not normally we don't normally get a chance to see these guys. So spring training is sort of a time where theoretically you get to go and you get to see these prospects and you get to see these guys who will be on the big leagues in the future, but just aren't exactly there yet. But this event highlighted specifically when you go to spring training games, most of the time you have no when you get the tickets, you have no idea at that point how things are going to shake out, who they're going to be playing that day, et cetera, et cetera. So it was nice to sort of have this one event where the best prospects sort of are going to be playing against each other. And that's the other key too, is they're going to be playing against each other, right? We had the Skeens and Holiday matchup, which we've had one other time in the past. But overall, if there's a spring training game between the Pirates and the Orioles, the stars would have to align sort of perfectly in order for that matchup to happen. And how it was sort of designed and drawn up in this situation, it was guaranteed to happen because Holiday was coming up in the first inning and Skeens was pitching the first inning. So um, those kinds of things are benefited from this sort of event. Those sort of matchups are encouraged. It's more than just seeing the prospects play against some random double A pitcher or something like that, or someone who got a spring training invite, a veteran, but it's also seeing them compete specifically against each other. Now, granted, in some situations, like it doesn't always work out like that, which is fine. For instance, Basayo didn't get to hit against Skeens, for instance. But overall, the format of how this went sort of allowed that matchup to come to fruition, or potentially similar matchups in the future to come to fruition in a way that is less likely to happen in regular spring training games. So overall, think it's a good event overall. Excited about it moving forward. Every team is playing in one of these games. They either already played or they are going to play in the next day or two. The event should sort of wrap up. But yeah, other than that, that was sort of the recap of this one game. We will resume our normal spring training coverage coming up this upcoming week. Anyway, that'll do it for this show. Please give us a rating, a review. As Eli and Tyler have been mentioning, if you haven't yet, please subscribe to us on YouTube, the Warehouse Podcast. They've been mentioning we've sort of been skyrocketing in subscribers, so please subscribe to us over there. Feel free to comment on our videos as well. We always respond to the comments when we see them. I think we always respond. I'm pretty sure we always respond. But If you also want to contact the show, you can, and the comments section doesn't feel appropriate, you can also contact the show by emailing us, thewarehousepod@gmail.com. And in addition to that, you can follow us on Twitter and on Instagram at the Warehouse Pod. So thank you so much for listening to this recap of the Pirates Orioles spring breakout game. My name is Jesse. This has been the Warehouse Podcast, and go O's.